Hello again. Though I did in fact manage to get up at a reasonable time. So here I am, here to do a little bit of gaming before I go away for the weekend. Some urgent stuff came up, so yeah. I will definitively not be able to stream this weekend. But, no, it's not the worst. That being said, as you might have seen from the title, today I will be playing Getting Over It. Of course, I've already played Getting Over It a fair amount of times, and yet it's something that I just come back to every now and then, and it felt appropriate given stuff that's happening around now. So yeah, just okay. Well, first off, the game name is wrong, so we can just fix that. It's probably the easiest fix. Okay, so it is recording now. And just give me a few seconds to share that my obligation to say whenever I'm doing anything on Twitter. Oh. Well, color me surprised. Got likes on a tweet. But anyway. Well, I shouldn't say. But anyway, that's quite surprising. You know, I'm pretty much used to things like that just being, oh, I'm just tossing it out to the void, and maybe one day it will get some interactivity. But that was actually pretty nice to see. I was considering letting Bennett cook and just staying quiet while he does so, but then I remembered that if I have even a decent pace, he'll never stop talking. Case in point, he goes straight from one predetermined voice line to another. But what he says here, which I will let say, is kind of interesting. Oh shit. Yeah, I think that's enough of letting Bennett cook. He had some good takes during your mountain climb, but I think that one's, you know, as a streamer, as a gamer, that one's pretty relevant to what's going on. Well, because, you know, a lot of the times, if you were there for older games, you were like something like Pitfall on the SNES. Where's the voiceover? Yeah, I don't mean in the sense that games have become like there's a lot of hand-holding, I feel, which is why Elden Ring was such a breath of fresh air. And you know, FromSoft is notorious for making hard games. But I think the design, like, individual and distinct from the difficulty of Elden Ring, though they were intertwined, was a breath of fresh air because you're not told how to do really anything in Elden Ring. You get vague sort of instructions from characters every now and then, but ultimately, you don't have to do what they're saying. Like if they say, "Oh, go to Limgrave," you can totally skip that. You can just go over through the like Rocky Mountain Pass into Reyndell? Leyendell? I forget. I haven't played Elden Ring since I finished my first playthrough. I will say, Elden Ring's replayability it's not too high. I felt the same way about most Souls-likes, to be honest. But yeah, it feels a lot like when it comes to single-player games these days, that they're not really there's not that sense of achievement when you do something unknown, right? There's not that sort of mystique. And I guess that was a bad comparison on my part, because Pitfall, it's not really mystique, but you don't really get a tutorial either. You're not told what to do in Pitfall, but it's quite linear anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. I guess a more fitting one would be Link to the Past. And you know, maybe it was just my reading comprehension being atrocious at the time. But mostly what led you to certain dungeons wasn't the game sort of ushering you to do stuff, even though it totally did with like dungeons, mind you. Like you would need certain items to to enter a dungeon. But overall, in the open world, you weren't forced to do anything, and that made for organic exploration, I feel. This might be bad. Yeah, that was just a bad one. Like, on the other hand, you have a game like crap, what's a game that I actually played in recent memory? Like, I heard about Cyberpunk, and you know, I can't run Cyberpunk. That's far beyond the range of my hardware limitations, but still. I heard about Cyberpunk, and it's a lot of waypoints. It feels like side stories which you very rarely get to do because of how not fleshed out they are, and how rare the quality of these things are. It feels like, even though you're in this huge city, this sprawling city that's actually meant to feel like a one-to-one of real life, that it's just not, that it's not alive at all. Like, your actions don't have consequences on the world. And games that are good at this kind of thing, like Fallout New Vegas, these are usually regarded as like timeless classics, but Cyberpunk, I feel, missed the mark. And you know, part of that is just the expectations that were surrounding Cyberpunk. It was a super new gen game. It promised so much, but it couldn't really deliver. It was set up to fail based on the marketing. But what came out was a pretty mediocre game that tanked a lot of PCs. Jeez. I really feel like that Link to the Past would still hold up today. And you might think, well, no, otherwise they wouldn't have remastered it and Link Between Worlds. But Link Between Worlds really was not the same game, which you know might be your case in point. Like, they had to remaster it instead of doing what's the term? Where they just touch up graphics. But anyway, you get the point. They had to change the fundamental gameplay, is what you might think. And maybe I'm just an old head for this, but I really don't feel like Link to the Worlds is a remaster of Link to the Past for that very reason, because it's so distinctly different, I would say. How did I manage to do such a horrendously bad jump? Yeah, I guess that single player games in recent memory all have that sort of feeling of having your hand held. You know what I mean? It doesn't feel like even if you do something cool, like it doesn't have like, ow. The worlds don't have the same feeling of accomplishment when you do cool things, because it's like, well, it was intended anyway. No point in continuing that save. Might as well get a fresh one. I don't know how, actually, there was a good single player game recently, God of War. Haven't played it. I've never played an installment in the franchise, but it's a beloved one, and I've heard people say that the original release of God of War also would still hold up today. I asked, and apparently the new, well, if you couldn't tell from the names of the games, the new God of War series is just a whole different pantheon. It goes to Norse mythology, which, you know, I don't really know how that works. I may enjoy lore and be a lore buff in certain cases, but God of War, you know, never really considered God of War to be a game where I would really care about lore in the first place. Like, you look at God of War and it just feels like, oh, Kratos angry, Kratos go beat up God, Kratos kills him in a Mortal Kombat type with the whole finisher. I feel like outside of that, single player games really have been on the decline. Not just in terms of quantity, but also quality. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but you know. Like, I haven't seen single player games like hit a gaming news. Like, they're not really on the radar, is what I mean. Like, people have moved on to multiplayer games and live service games, which is a pretty big bummer, I feel. It's kind of just that boomer sentiment of, oh, remember when we had a whole game when we bought it for like $20 at the local store? Remember when it was all on a cartridge and I didn't have to download anything? Like, I'm not so much of a boomer that I really care about the whole downloading extra content thing. But it, you know, it is kind of like, well, would it be a finished product without it? And would it take the same amount of time if it wasn't? Like, if we were in that sort of olden mentality, would it be the case that we would have been able to release games earlier and just had more later content be included as DLC? I don't really know. I'm not a game dev. But somebody knows. Somebody has those answers. Like, I'm not too upset about games being buggy. Like, that's been a thing since forever. It's just we expect games these days to be not so, to not have game-breaking bugs, because we've advanced technologically to the point where you'd assume that's like, oh, that shouldn't happen, but no. Bugs will forever be present in code, which means that they will forever be present in games. Hold on. I should be monitoring the stream on my phone, because, well, simply put, since I'm playing the game in full screen, I can't monitor chat, which is I guess why I should stick to playing windowed games and Switch games, because I can actually just monitor chat that way. That was a bad jump. Ooh. I just don't seem to have as much control over my hammers I would like. Granted, that shouldn't really surprise anybody, since I haven't played Getting Over It in a couple months. I visited it again not too far long ago. As you can probably tell from the slight gold tint at the bottom of my pot. Like, I'm not exactly getting my old speedrun times of sub 5 minutes, you know? I would be interested in trying to speedrun this game though, but it's pretty hard. Like, you can't, speedrunning in particular, you can't just go, oh, I'm gonna wake up one day and want to speedrun a game. Like, it just doesn't happen. If you want to be competitive in speedrunning, in particular, you really do need to put in an obscene amount of time. Realistically, I don't know how people can do that without it being their job. But Getting Over It is a game that I think really necessitates, in a way, speedrunning. Because, you know, people can sort of one and done Getting Over It. I don't know how many people do. I'd assume it's of significant margin, but for me, when I wanted to gold pot it, the first run was obviously the hardest, you know? Second run was similar in difficulty, but I did almost half my time. And by the like 4th or 5th or so run, I'd gotten down to 30 minutes. And I think that's something that most people who would get the gold pot experience. That sort of familiarity with the controls, the knowledge of the jumps. That sort of facilitates that speedrunner mindset, I would say. Like, just from speedrunning, I know that you can jump from here all the way down here up to there. It's hard. It's not something that I can do consistently even now. Well, I say even now, but even before, when I was basically when I just finished my gold pot runs, But the sort of intimate knowledge of a game does turn you towards speedrunning. Because speedrunning at its heart is just... it's the highest level of mastery that you can have in a single player game. I guess in a way you could try and extend it to multiplayer games. But it's not the same. Because in multiplayer games, like... yeah, I guess you could say that. The goal... you are good at a multiplayer game if you wipe the opponent as fast as possible. But I don't really think that displays mastery. That displays a skill diff. Because, I mean, no top-tier gameplay, like in competitions and tournaments and the like, they're not speedruns. Like Smash, you will never see, basically never see, a game where stocks just fly like they could between a pro and a newbie. In Dota, oh jeez. Even in Dota, where they're inclined to just actually just surrender and go next if they think they've lost. Which, you know, that won't happen in a public game or even a ranked game. They're there until the Ancient dies. But you won't see a tournament or a pro game go the same speed as a casual one. Which is why I think that, you know, in that sense, speedrunning is unique. I say that as I bludgeon myself upon the rocks. And in that sense, I do think that getting over it is unique, because no game really encourages you to speedrun as much as this one. And it's not even intrinsic to the game, I would say. Like, because even on your first clear, you know, you really can't tell that your pot is changing off of one clear. Like, maybe you can if you scrutinize it. I feel like you would assume that most people would just never touch the game again, you know, based on their first experience. Because, well, the controls are inherently unintuitive. It's quite punishing. You slip once in the wrong spot and your progress is back to zero. Like Sisyphus dropped the ball, you have to do that over again. But still, I'll check after, probably once I get to the ice wall. But I'm pretty sure on Steam achievements, a significant portion, like maybe 20% or so, of people who have beat the game have gone on to get the gold pot. And it's, I would say it's unlike anything else. Because, like, what other game, single player, can you hate so much and yet return to it so frequently? Like, you know, multiplayer games, I feel, don't suffer that. Basically, every multiplayer game will have people going like, oh, it sucks, it's the worst game in existence, and keep playing it. I know. I said that about Dota before I finally put it down for good when I realized it wasn't coming back from that kind of a rut. I've done it with... not with Smash. Despite all the shortcomings of Smash and how I will jokingly say that it's trash, I still think it's probably one of the best balanced games ever, to be honest. Because, like, how do you balance having, like, 90 plus characters as well as Smash does? There are games where you have, like, like a racing game like Top Gear on the SNES, where you only have like 4 cars and it's still horrendously unbalanced, you know? Was lost my train of thought. Well, not my train of thought. I lost track of what I was trying to say in the first place. But I do believe that it was about single player games and the uniqueness of getting over it to entrap players despite how horrendously unfriendly it is. But frankly, it might even be because of how horrendously unfriendly it is. Like, games have become quite kind to the players, which is a good thing, you know? But only when they intend to be. Like, I wouldn't think that a kind or easy roguelike would be a good game, you know? I don't think a Souls-like that's easy would even be a Souls-like at that point. There is a market for hard games, and there's a market for easy games, but I don't think there should be a market for games that basically play themselves. And you know, the distinction at which a game becomes too easy is wholly subjective, but I definitely feel like a lot of games that have come out in recent years are too kind to the players, you know? Like in Pokemon, for example. I don't think we're gonna get a team like Cynthia's ever again. And here's the thing, right? Cynthia's team in the remake, in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, was objectively stronger than it was in Platinum. It had like the Miracle Scale Burn Orb Milotic. And it had the better AI, so it would be more consistent in dealing out the pain. But Cynthia in Platinum, the original Platinum, well, I said original, but they don't do third games anymore. Cynthia in Platinum was a unique challenge because the game itself, the Platinum, was significantly harder by design than Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. So even though mechanically the fight in the remakes was harder, in effect it was just business as usual. Like the universal shared EXP made grinding a lot easier, for one. Two, like, you had more opportunities to get HMs, IVs, EVs, those sort of things. Like, you didn't have your HM slave anymore. But, and another thing, you usually wouldn't have, by nature, one Pokemon could not carry. Because even if you had that one Pokemon carry, because of the EXP share, you would by default train up your other Pokemon. And I think that runs opposite to the very design of Pokemon. Because, like, originally, right? Say I played Platinum with Empoleon. By about Crasher Wake, or I guess even Byron, 5th and 6th gym respectively, you would get stonewalled if you tried to play wrong, which would be just starter scumming, where you would just, you know, solely have your starter carry, have them take all the XP, never switch out, and use your other Pokemon as like revive dummies, you know? You could not play that playstyle. You could. I'm speaking incorrectly. Even though you could, it was heavily disincentivized. And you know where playing wrong would culminate? In Cynthia. Because once you got to Cynthia, an Empoleon or a Torterra could never, in a million years, outspeed a Garchomp. And Garchomp will basically always one-shot those two Pokemon. Infernape probably could outspeed Garchomp, but by the same token, he's not going to do any damage to Garchomp. Fire fighting against ground is an abysmal matchup. In the remake, you are not allowed to make mistakes. If you lose a gym battle, 17 minutes, not horrendous. If you were to lose a gym battle, then you really don't need to change your setup. Hold on, let me just really quickly check the Steam achievements so that I can fact check myself. Okay, 8% of players have beat the game once, and 2.2 have gotten to the mountain 50 times, so gold potted. So yeah, it is about 25%. But as I was saying about Cynthia and Pokemon no longer allows you to make mistakes. In basically every front. Like, you don't need to sit and grind out a new Pokemon. If you lose a gym battle, if you get stonewalled by something, you can just grind up anything. Literally anything. And your entire team will get that EXP. Even like with EVs and IVs. It doesn't matter anymore. You just put the answer to Pokemon now is put in more time. It's not play smarter. It's not do research. It's not understand the game. It's put in more time. Do more senseless grinding. Because look, IVs, you just super train them with bottle caps now. EVs, you just super train them with mints now. And I think that's worse for the game in a way. Because, like, I get it. Not everybody wanted to, like, get a 6 IV Ditto to get their perfect Pokemon, right? Not everybody wanted to sit in one route and grind the same Pokemon 5 times per level at the low ball estimate to get the EVs they wanted. I don't think you can disagree that learning how to do those things was at least a little bit more interesting than just going to the Battle Tower ad nauseum. And I do have opinions about the Battle Tower, mind you, and how since time immemorial they've just cheated. And like once you win too many times, they're like, oh, guess it's time for me to do 2 RNG moves and select Pokemon that counters this team. I guess on the note of Pokemon, it's not the worst thing in the world. The option is there for people who want it, and for those who don't want it, they can still do IVs through breeding. But that's the sort of thing I mean. Like, sometimes it's okay to not give the player options. Sometimes it's okay to just stonewall them. Etrian Odyssey, a game series that I have enjoyed dearly, is relentlessly brutal. Was complete disregard for player satisfaction. Like, in the original, no one would tell you that, like, gourds are unkillable by anything except for elemental damage. You would just have to figure that out yourself. And you would probably cart each time you run into a gourd. That's okay. In, like, Etrian Odyssey 2, you would get absolutely mauled on the first floor of the first stratum if you tried to challenge foes. Hell, and you would leave the first floor and go to the second just to realize that it's populated by butterflies that do poison that's essentially just a ticking time bomb. Like, if you get poisoned, you are going to die in 5 turns minimum. I miss that sort of difficulty in games, is what I'm getting at. The harshness of it. Because now, it feels like I don't have... It questions how much I've achieved. It doesn't feel like an accomplishment. Oh, let me out. I don't know if other people share that sentiment. Granted, I just haven't heard about single-player games at all these days. I do have gripes with multiplayer and live service games too. The advent of the Battle Pass, for one. Like, the Battle Pass inherently, like, it's a smart system. Let's be real. It's a smart system. It's just greedy. And I hate that. Like, basically every Battle Pass works the same way. There's a free variant and a paid variant. And usually, the Battle Pass itself has enough paid currency in it by the time you finish it that you can afford a Battle Pass for the next season. And it's like, you would think that, oh, that's just bad business. No, it's good business. I wouldn't call it smart, but it is good business because it incentivizes people to play the game to an extent that they recoup their losses of not having you buy another Battle Pass. Because that's more than I would say cosmetics or premium currency. Games want you to keep playing them. Because that's how they get the most numbers. That's how they assess success. That might be wrong. They do assess success based on profits. But the logic is, well, the more people play it, the more likely they are to spend money. Just by nature of, you know, the more exposure you have to opportunities for you to spend money. And it's I guess in their minds it's a sort of a slippery slope situation where, oh, if they have spent money on the battle pass already, then surely they will be. It is possible for them to spend money on something else in game. I just don't like that. Like in Overwatch, for example, the new characters are in the battle pass, and if you want to play them, you can pay money. You can cough up your doubloons to get them off the bat. But if you don't, they're still there. You can still get them for free in the free battle pass. You just have to grind up. Last season they were at level 55. This season Ramatra is at level 45. And it's like, well, you can just wait until next season, right? Like, maybe... I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But if they were just, like, permanently locked, if you didn't unlock them in that season, that would be miserable. But I wouldn't put it past them. This is the same game that made that horrendous Diablo game. Where it was gacha but bad. Gacha but miserable. Gacha but barefacedly exclusively for the purpose of profit. Like, if you wanna make me cough up doubloons for JPEGs, at least make it likely that I'll get the damn thing. Gacha enthusiasm is similar to... No. Gacha enthusiasm is wholeheartedly different from that, I would say. You may be like, well, why? What do you mean by that? Isn't it the same sort of logic? Well, no. Because even in Overwatch, which is probably more well known to people than gacha generally is, and take this with a grain of salt, because I only started playing Overwatch when Overwatch 2 came out, and only because friends insisted that we try it out as the new fad of the week. It turned into the fad of like the month, but people are getting more busy now. We don't have as much time to play it together. And maybe it's just me, but I feel like playing FPS's solo is a bit of a miserable experience. But I'm getting derailed again. Point is, I think basically everyone looks back fondly on loot boxes, which sounds absurd. Like, loot boxes were the punching bag of the internet for a very, very long time. But it's like, compared to what they replaced it with, loot boxes were better. Jeez. Like, loot boxes were preferred, and how bad does the system have to be for you to want the loot boxes back, Because now, in Overwatch, you'll basically never get enough premium currency to get a skin you want. Like, it would take about a year of consistent play and getting the whole weekly challenges done. Maybe not a year, probably a little over half a year. Like, just from doing the math in my head. Actually, about 3/4 of a year of playing the game enough to get all weekly rewards for you to get even a single legendary skin. And it's like, well, what? Just get a non-legendary skin? No, no one in their right mind in a FPS game has ever wanted something that was not a legendary skin, for the simple reason of fact that legendary skins are the only ones that change the appearance of a character. And you might be like, well, that's definitionally wrong. All skins change how a character looks, and it's like, well, yes and no. Non-legendary skins do palette changes, and the only distinction between lower tier rarities is how ugly the developer thinks a palette changes. Legendary is where any effort comes into designing skins. I will say that. I will say that 100%. Like, if you want to design a non-legendary skin, literally just go into Photoshop and put on a color filter. Boom. Just literally slide that wheel around and around, and you get your common and rare skins. Oh, you want to do a unique skin or a mythic skin or whatever? Well, not mythic. Mythic is usually designed for things above legendary. What's the term? Common, uncommon, rare, and whatever the purple one usually is. You want to design a purple skin? A purple tier skin? Oh, just put a JPEG over where it was used to be solid color. There you go. So the fact that Overwatch has gotten to a point where you will basically, I don't know how much changed, but you'll probably be getting like, I don't know even. I shouldn't make any statements about the varying degree. Yeah, but Overwatch monetization is a real shitfest. I just can't imagine how people would go from loot boxes, which so detested, so universally detested, but to what we have now, which is widely considered one of the worst battle passes in gaming history. Like, how do you do that? People have already hated battle passes, but have been in the sort of camp that, oh, well, I still got free stuff, so it doesn't detract anything from the game. How do you mar a reputation beyond that? It's baffling. I should stop soon. I'll try and see if I can finish this run first, though. I feel bad leaving it. Yes. Don't feel so bad anymore. Okay, well, thank you. See you around.